utujalie tuyatende na kufikiria mambo yote yatakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili utukufu na sifa zako ziendelezwe, na ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi yetu na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amen. We have quorum to transact business. Clerk.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages.
Do you have any message? No. Next order. Okay. These are petitions.
Number 4, petitions.
Honorable members, I have 2 petitions to convey to the House. The first petition is regarding enactment of legislation to criminalize and prescribe penalties for the crime of enforced disappearance. Honorable members, Article 119 of the Constitution accords any person the right to petition Parliament to consider any matter within its authority. Further, Standing Order 2252B requires the Speaker to report to the House any petition other than those presented by a member. In this regard, honorable members, I wish to report to the House that my office has received a petition from one Dr. Annette Mbogo, the Executive Director of Kituo cha Sheria Legal Advice Center, calling for enactment of legislation to criminalize and prescribe penalties for the crime of enforced disappearance. The petitioner claims that the organization has worked closely with the victims of cases of extrajudicial killings and disappearances in the country since 2007 and documented a total of 1,201 killings and 272 enforced disappearances, with most of the incidences having occurred in the hands of the police and other security agencies. The petitioner further claims that in 2021, Kenya reported approximately 43 cases of disappearances of persons who are last seen in police custody or who were abducted by persons believed to be police officers. Honorable members, the petition highlights the northern and coast regions as being hotspots for such incidences to counter terrorism operations, and cites other instances including the retrieving of at least 20 bodies from River Yala. The petitioner is concerned that there is no effective legal remedy available through law to hold suspects accountable for forcibly disappearing victims whose whereabouts remain unknown or denied. Efforts to have the matter addressed through filing of a constitutional petition seeking that the Attorney General does request the President to form a judicial commission of inquiry to look into the rampant cases of enforced disappearances have not been fruitful. The petitioner therefore prays that the National Assembly enacts laws that will expressly criminalize and prescribe penalties for the crime of enforced disappearance. Honourable members, having established that the matter raised in the petition is well within the authority of this House, and further that the matters raised in this petition are not pending before any court of law, constitutional or legal body, I hereby commit the petition to the Public Petitions Committee for consideration pursuant to Standing Order 208A. The committee is required to consider the petition and report its findings to the House and to the petitioner in accordance with the Standing Order 2272. I thank you. Honourable members at the door, at the back, can take their seats. Take the nearest seat. Take the nearest seats, members. The second petition, honourable members, is regarding the state of food security in the country. Honourable members, Article 119 of the Constitution gives right to any person to petition Parliament to consider any matter within its authority. Further, Standing Order 2252B requires the Speaker to report to the House any petition other than those presented by a member. In this regard, honourable members, I wish to report to the House that my office has received a petition from one Shadrach Agaki of identification card number 27414999, a citizen with interest in the worrying state of food security in the country. The petitioner states that food insecurity continues to affect the lives of many Kenyans contrary to the aspirations espoused in Article 43(1)(c) of the Constitution that obligates the state to ensure that every citizen is free from hunger and have adequate food of acceptable quantity and quality. Honourable members, the petitioner is concerned that various policies, initiatives, and programs that have been implemented in an attempt to address food insecurity have been unsuccessful. He alludes to the fact that no significant efforts have been made to realize optimum yield in Kenya's different ecological zones. The petitioner therefore prays that the National Assembly amends the Food Security Act with the aim of achieving a clear legal framework and coordination mechanism between the national and county governments in addressing food and nutritional insecurity in the country. Honourable members, having established that the matter raised in the petition is well within the authority of this House, and further the matters raised in this petition are not pending before any court of law, constitutional or legal body, I hereby commit the petition to the Public Petitions Committee for consideration pursuant to Standing Order 208A. The committee is required to consider the petition and report its findings to the House and to the petitioner in accordance with Standing Order 2272. I thank you. Honourable members, standing orders give us an opportunity to comment on such petitions for at least 30 minutes. You've heard the two petitions, one on food security, one on forced disappearances. I'll give you an opportunity to make your comments. The screen is full as usual. I don't know if it's about this petition or about other businesses coming. Those who want to comment, I suggest you go to interventions, which is already full as well. I will start with James Wandai, Ugunja. It is good to mention which petition you are particularly commenting on, food security or disappearances.
Let me comment on the petition on enforced disappearances, because that's a very, very, very serious issue that goes to the heart of our Bill of Rights as a country. Mr. Speaker, that is a timely petition in my view. And I don't even think the manner in which it is couched will give us the adequate attention that it requires. Because in my view, this is a matter that requires the establishment of a commission of inquiry. Even as we address future cases of enforced disappearances, we must go to the root of this matter by investigating past incidences, past cases of enforced disappearances. I have seen the petitioner is making reference to police or security agents, but that as it may. But I think this goes beyond the police and security agents. There could be people, of course, who are using these agents or agencies to effect these enforced disappearances. And therefore, it's a very timely issue, and that needs to be addressed with the utmost seriousness that it surely deserves. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Wandai. Didymus Barasa.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I also want to comment on this petition on forced disappearances, and just being cautious, Honorable Speaker, that I hope it excludes, you know, I come from a region where we still have traditional marriages where a girl can disappear for 2 weeks, then come back after maybe 3 weeks. I hope this excludes criminalizing this type of behavior. Secondly, I'm happy that the Member of Parliament for Unguja is now supporting that actually forced disappearance should be criminalized. You know, when Kenyans were disappearing in the previous regime, we were saying is wrong, and I'm happy that his opposition now adds impetus to what all of us will want to ensure that nobody should disappear for whatever reasons, and any disappearance must be meted with the full force of law, and that must be, I hope that this petition will be expedited and the recommendations implemented. Honorable Speaker, I support.
Gitonga Murugara.
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, enforced disappearance is an act of extrajudicial killing. And this is rampant in the country, as witnessed by bodies being retrieved from Yala River. A regime that was there at independence and after independence used to tell people, you cross the path of the government and you find yourself in Ngong Forest. That appears to have continued up to today. As we speak, and from Daraka in the year 2017, a young man known as Mwenda had complained to the International Justice Mission, and him and his lawyer and the driver were actually sentenced to death. It actually behoves on us to move the speed, pass laws that criminalize any forced disappearance so that we can value the right to life in the country. As regards the food security, it's vitally important that we actually become self-sustaining in food. It's vitally important that we stop crying, we stop seeing our people dying because of lack of food. This is a basic right. We just need to get it right, and we would be away from famines, from drought, and from food insecurity, which is rampant at the present moment in time. Let us amend the Act, make food security one of the matters that we must bring to book, so that at the end of the day, the country has enough food for everyone. Quality food and quantity food. Thank you very much.
Robert Mbui, Kadiani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I also want to add my voice to the issue regarding the state of food security in the country. And I want to say that, Mr. Speaker, if the situation is actually not addressed now, and these rains do not do as well as the meteorological department is proposing, then we may start losing lives as a result of food insecurity. You remember recently, Mr. Speaker, there was a school in somewhere, I think in Kajiado, where the bell for lunch rang, and then instead of the children queuing, the parents actually rushed into the school to queue for food. So there's a major problem. And I want to just urge that the current regime, Kenya Kwanza, needs to become responsive to the needs of the people. I know that they have talked about how not to subsidize food, but you know, sometimes extraordinary times call for extraordinary measures. So I want to say that this issue of food security needs to be addressed. The government needs to put their best foot forward, and we must nip this in the bud. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Robert. Badi Jomvu.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Pia mimi Mheshimiwa Spika naungana na wenzangu ili kuweza kuchangia juu ya hizi petition mbili. Mheshimiwa Spika, mwanzo ni Mheshimiwa Spika katika hali ya chakula. Na leo Mheshimiwa Spika, watu wote katika nchi hii ya Kenya wanalia juu ya ongezeko la bei ya chakula. Lakini nataka kusema ni lazima Mheshimiwa Spika kuwe na uongozi mzuri.
Order, honorable members at the back who are holding a kamkunji in the chamber. Order.
Koyo.
Order, honorable members. If you want to have a conversation, there are provision corridors out there. Go on, honorable member. Endelea Mheshimiwa.
Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, nikiangalia hali hii lazima kuwe na uongozi mzuri. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiangalia katika hii mambo ya bei ya chakula, hali ni mbaya sana katika nchi kwa wakati huu. Lakini pia tukiangalia katika nchi hii ya Kenya, Mheshimiwa Spika, kuna mahali ambako kulikuwa kunaitwa Galana Kulalu, ambako watu wa Israeli walikuja pale ili kuweza kutaka kusaidiana na nchi hii katika mambo ya food production ama katika kukuza chakula. Lakini tukiangalia watu wale, Mheshimiwa Spika, walifanyiwa finyange nyingi sana mpaka mwisho wakaondoka hapa nchini. Mheshimiwa, niko na imani wako local investors ama wako wale ambao wameweza kujitolea wafanyabiashara ambao watataka kufanya kazi hiyo ya ukuzaji wa chakula pale Galana Kulalu. Kubwa ambalo mimi naliomba ni kuona kwa serikali iweze kuunga mkono ili kazi ile waweze kuifanya na matatizo haya yaweze pia kutuondokea. Mheshimiwa Spika, katika petition ya pili tukiangalia hasa kule Mombasa tunakotoka, watoto wengi sana walikuwa napotea kwa kisababu cha kuwa ati ni Al-Shabaab. Hakuna sababu yoyote ambayo ilikuwa inaonyesha vijana hao kwa nini wanatuhumiwa. Lakini serikali waona kijana ameshikwa akiangaliwa mara 2-3 hapatikani. Kwa hivyo ni lazima tuone kwa serikali ilinde watu wake na kuwa na ubinadamu katika kuona kuwa wanawashughulikia. Ikiwa kuna jambo lolote, mtu asipotezwe, aweze kupatikana, ushahidi upatikane, aweze kuchukuliwa hatua. Kwa hivyo kwa hayo Mheshimiwa Spika, nashukuru kwa kunipatia nafasi hii na mimi pia kuchangia katika petition hizi mbili. Asante.
Robert Bukose Endebes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, first I want to congratulate you on your award of your honorary PhD by Masinde Muliro University. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, I want to make a comment on the extrajudicial killings, that when the Committee on Petitions will be looking at amending the law, they should not just look at the extrajudicial killings in terms of police people disappearance, but they should also look at it in terms of, we've seen cases of police, whether Kenya Forest Rangers, whether KWS, killing Kenyans without any proper justification. And I think that is also extrajudicial killings, and it should be covered in all. Because, Honorable Speaker, I've heard several cases of Kenya KWS askaris killing people in Mount Elgon Lodge who have just gone to look for firewood. So I think this is a very important petition. On issues of food security, Honorable Speaker, as the committee looks at it, we have other potential areas where we can grow our food. It's not just Kulalu scheme, but we have many ADC farms, especially in my constituency, which are lying idle and could be able to be utilized for proper food production. And we can also harness issues of water under gravity to be able to make sure that these lands provide enough food to feed this country. With those few remarks, I support.
Dido Raso Saku.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on judicial, extrajudicial killing and disappearances. This is the strategy of a weak state that is not able to police its citizens adequately. As I'm speaking from the floor of the House, 2 of my constituents were actually abducted almost 1 year ago, and they are nowhere to be seen. Those who are involved are believed to be persons who are associated with security of the state. Honorable Speaker, unless this matter is criminalized, Kenyans' lives will continue to be wasted with impunity. On the issue of food security, I think for those of us who are from famine-stricken areas, this is what we see today, that Kenya needs to be food secure so that lives are not lost. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
David Posing, Pokoti South.
I thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to make comments on the petitions. And let me start with the petition, Honorable Speaker, of forced disappearance. Speaker, this is a fundamental petition, very important petition. And I would wish that the petitioner or the committee, Honorable Speaker, may invite some members, honorable members here, so that they can also benefit from their experience, Honorable Speaker. And one of my comments is that they should not look at the law only, Speaker. They should also look at a commission of inquiry. We need a commission of inquiry, Speaker, on these extrajudicial activities, Speaker. And I come from a community which, Honorable Speaker, lives in fear of extrajudicial killing, Honorable Speaker, and forced disappearance. And that's the Pokot people. And of course, Speaker, you heard that I was on news for bad reasons or good reasons, maybe 2 weeks ago that I was picked, Honorable Speaker, from my office. And what did I do, Speaker? Because of that fear of extrajudicial killing, some boys were arrested from my community. And we were fearing that they were actually going to be hanged or killed or disappear, Honorable Speaker, as it has been in history in my community, Honorable Speaker, of the Pokot people. So what I did, I had to escort them. I had to go to court, sat there, and made sure, the Speaker, that when they were released from court, that at least they went home, Honorable Speaker, safely. And whatever means they went home, Honorable Speaker, is something that is good for me to say, I better save our people, Honorable Speaker. And there was no sin I committed, because our community, Honorable Speaker, live in fear of extrajudicial killing every day. I want to urge this committee, Honorable Speaker, to be very careful and to be sensitive and to call some of us so that we can share with them our experience, Honorable Speaker. But start, first of all, with a commission of inquiry, Honorable Speaker. I support it.
Wangari Mother Gilgil.
Asante Bwana Spika, hata mimi natoa maoni kulingana na dua hili lililowasilishwa kwenye bunge hili na mkurugenzi kutoka kituo cha sheria kuhusu kutoweka kwa lazima kwa binadamu. Na Bwana Spika, haya maneno ni mambo ya kikatiba, ni mambo ya haki za binadamu, na nafikiri jamii nyingi zimeumia sana. Na ukiangalia kwa jinsia, Bwana Spika, wale ambao mara nyingi wanatoweka ni wanaume. Unapata watoto kwamba wanabaki mayatima, kunabaki wajane, wanawake wanabaki wajane, Bwana Spika. Na kamati hii tunaomba kwamba iangalie, unajua kuna mambo ambayo unaweza poteza binadamu, Bwana Spika, lakini afadhali hata upate mwili. Kumefika mahali mpaka familia zinaomba zipate tu mili wazike waweze kusahau. Kwa hivyo Bwana Spika, nikiangalia kama juzi mwaka wa 2021 kuna wakili mmoja kutoka kijiji kinaitwa Miti Mingi kule Gilgil alitoweka, na hata waleo hatujui yako wapi. Bwana Spika, watoto wake wanahangaika, wazazi wanahangaika. Kwa hivyo tutatumaini kwamba wataleta haya mambo na wataleta ripoti hiyo ya mambo haya kwenye bunge hili, ndio tuweze kuhakikisha kwamba mambo ya kutoweka huku kutakuwa kukiweza kukua jinai na ichukuliwe hatua kama inavyofaa. Asante Bwana Spika.
Rueda Obo, Lamu East.
Asante Bwana Spika kunipatia nafasi nami kuchangia katika ombi lilotumwa kuhusu watu kupotea kiholela. Bwana Spika, sisi Lamu County tumekuwa waathiriwa sana. Listi ni ndefu tukitoa wale watu wetu walopotea na hatuwajui wako wapi mpaka sasa. Bwana Spika, listi hiyo nikitoa nafikiri itakuwa hata sipati la kuzungumza, itakuwa ni kutaja hayo majina peke yake. Bwana Spika, sisi kwetu tulikuwa tukifikiria sana ni issue za Al-Shabaab na vile tuko mpakani. Lakini Bwana Spika, la kusikitisha zaidi na la kuchanganya watu zaidi huko Lamu, kwa karibu tuliambiwa mauaji ya Lamu County hauhusiani na Al-Shabaab na husiana na mashamba. Sasa watu wangu wametatizika zaidi, hawajui wanaua nani. Kwa nini watu wetu wakimbie, wateswe kwa sababu ya Al-Shabaab, na kumbe kuna kiongozi ambaye ajua wanaua watu ni nani? Kwa hivyo mimi nimefurahi ombi hili kuja. Hata mimi itabidi niifanye kama ni statement au kama ni petition. Serikali ituambie kwamba ni nani wanaua watu Lamu, manake imetatiza watu. Siku nyingi imekuwa tukifikiria ni Al-Shabaab ndo wanaua watu. Kumbe si Al-Shabaab, ni mambo ya ardhi. Na alosema kiongozi inamaanisha anawajua wanaua watu Lamu County. Na itakuwa vizuri kwa sababu imetuaffect sana, imetutatiza sisi kule tunategemea utalii. Watalii wamekuwa hawaji, askari wengi, hizi convoy nyingi za ukienda kama mtalii ukiona majeshi wengi unashangaa unaenda pahali gani, wanaogopa narudi njiani. Na pesa nyingi ya serikali imekuwa ikitumika kwa lindaboni tukijua ni Al-Shabaab na watu wanapotea ovyo ovyo. Kwa hivyo sasa hii tumejua, tunataka serikali jitolee waziwazi, tujue wanaua watu mkina nani na uchumi wetu uweze kuendelea Lamu County. Asante Bwana Spika.
Rindikiri Mugambi Buri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to comment on this issue of extrajudicial killing and unexplained disappearance of Kenyan citizens. Mr. Speaker, in the history of government, the government between 2017 and 2022, we witnessed a lot of disappearance of Kenyan citizens who were never given an opportunity to know exactly what was happening. Mr. Speaker, one of my constituents by the name Mwenda Bijewe disappeared in 2021. And up to today, there hasn't been any official communication from the government. Incidentally, Mr. Speaker, even the office of the DCI then was manned by somebody from my constituency. The attempt by the family to contact the office of the DCI, the office of the government prosecutor, the office of the IG, no family member or internal parties were given opportunity to write a statement, and they were never given a statement explaining the circumstances under which this gentleman disappeared. Mr. Speaker, I think time has come that the security organs in charge of maintaining peace in this country should start valuing the life of Kenyans. We have been told there are so many bodies that have been discovered in Yala River and in Nyanza, others in Mount Kenya, Aberdares, and so many other places. So I join my colleague to say time has come to change the law and demand that the government enforce always, whenever the case has been reported to the government to take measures. On the food security, this is coming handy. I think witnessing what the food security because of drought is happening, I support that we need to amend the Food Security Act so that we start dealing with this case in a more detailed manner, and that which is going to benefit the entire country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Abraham Kirwa Mosop. Give him the microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute to this motion about the food security. Mr. Speaker, Kenya as a country has not been able to feed itself since independence. Despite the fact that we say that agriculture is the backbone of this country, it contributes 33% of our GDP from agriculture, but as a nation, we've not been able to feed ourselves for reasons unknown. If you look at the amount of food we produce, somebody mentioned Kulalu farm that we had thought it might be of help. We look at areas like Rift Valley, which we consider it as the breadbasket of this country, is not able to produce enough food to feed the citizens of this country. So something needs to happen. If we need to go back and relook at the seeds that we are using in this country, so that we have to change. If we have to get advanced seeds that is going to allow farmers to produce more crops, then that's what needs to happen. And then we have to look at other ways on how this country we cannot have existed since independence and we are not able to feed our own people. The drought, of course, has made it worse because we have experienced the worst drought in years. We've never had this kind of drought in this country. But it is not enough after almost so many years that the country cannot feed itself. We have countries like Israel, which actually is in the desert, but it's able to feed its citizens. But Kenya, we get a lot of rainfall, we have a lot of greenery, but at the same time, we've not been able to feed our people. So it's time to sit down as a nation and actually reconsider our farming methods and ways we can actually, there are people who own trucks and trucks of land, but they are not using it to produce enough food for our country. So we have to sit down and reconsider our farming methods. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of people actually disappearing without knowing where they've gone, I don't believe in aliens, and I don't believe aliens come to this country to take people away. These people disappear because somebody somewhere played a game or killed them or took them away. And it is the responsibility of any government to provide security and protection to its people. So these people stories of people disappearing without knowing where they went has to be investigated. It is the responsibility of our government to make sure that actually every citizen is guaranteed security, and if somebody disappears and nobody knows, it is them to investigate and really find out where and why did somebody disappear. Thank you again, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute.
Omondi Karoli, Suba South.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to talk about these two issues. The first one, let me start with the food security issue before I come to forced disappearance. I think the poverty levels in Kenya today, the food poverty levels in Kenya today are in excess of 50%. And I think less than 60% of our families have 3 square meals a day. Majority, I think, are on 1. But this is not largely because of adverse weather or climate change. I think it is because of the way we have handled our land tenure system. All the large farms that used to be in Kenya some 30, 40 years ago have been subdivided into small lots because of the way we practice agriculture and the way we also to try and help consolidation. Food security is a function of mechanized agriculture. It is not a function of subsistence farming. So we can talk about seeds, we can talk about manure, we can talk about fertilizers. But as long as our farm holdings are of such size that cannot afford to be mechanized, there will never be a time when Kenya will be food secure. And I think that is where we should start. Either we aggregate our farming areas and try to create cooperatives that can then mechanize farming the way the white people do it or used to do it, or we stare at permanent food insecurity. Secondly, I think we need to make a deliberate effort. The water flows today in Kenya where you could do irrigation are from Nakuru to the lake region and western parts of Kenya. I think that is where we should focus on irrigation for purposes of our food security. And I think this issue, coupled with shortage of water, will probably create a lot of conflicts amongst communities in the future. Mr. Speaker, on forced or enforced disappearances, where the state deliberately abducts or imprisons people directly or through third parties in concert with such parties for political reasons, is very common. And I think it is something that we need to tackle very hard, together with the other issue of extrajudicial killings. But tied to that, I think more lives are also being lost on killings where the state is not involved. Like the deaths that come by cattle rustling, farm invasions, and all those kind of things. I think we need to relook at the legal framework, how we deal with these issues. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Owen Bayer.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, Dr. Moses Wetangula. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank the Director of Kituo cha Sheria for this petition, because Kituo cha Sheria has done extensive work on enforced disappearance. But more so, Honorable Speaker, there's a time in East Africa where we only associated disappearance of people to the regime in Uganda when Idi Amin Dada was president. And a lot of bodies were found in Lake Victoria and River Nile. But in the past regime, this country actually saw the same things that used to happen in Uganda during the regime of Idi Amin Dada. Honorable Speaker, very many young people in Mombasa, and especially at the coast, just a suspicion that they were looking different, would have them either disappear to the Savo forest or to the rivers. It's important as a country we come to know the truth. Who was killing these people? Who was behind this? I know when the current the president came into power, he took a purge at the DCI. But I also want to say that it is not enough to just take a purge on some officials at the DCI. We want to go to the bottom of it and know who killed those many people whose bodies were found at River Yala. Who are these people? Why were they being killed? Why is it that the previous government tolerated these killings? These are important things. And I think Kituo cha Sheria has documented these cases. They have the information, and I would like the Committee on Petitions to delve into the depth of it so that Kenyans can know where their loved ones went, why they went where they went, and who was behind that. Honorable Speaker, this is important for this country to move forward so that we are able to know what happened. If we must forgive, we forgive and move forward, but people must know where they went. There are very many cases in my constituency where young people disappeared. Young people from Malindi constituency, or Malindi, the neighboring town, disappeared just because they had a light skin, they had different hair, and they wore a turban. Just that, or they wore a kofia. And that would force a young person to just disappear. Honorable Speaker, it's very important that we go to the depth of it, and I want to thank Dr. Annette Mbogo for this petition. Secondly, food security is a problem right now. With climate change and all that, I think the second petition is important for this country. We need to look at our framework on food production, food security, so that we can move forward. This country does not only suffer from high prices, but also suffers from the drought that we have, the loss of animals, the loss of crop, all these are important things. So, Mr. Speaker, these two petitions, I want to urge the Committee on Petitions to look at them closely and give this House a report that we're able to sit down and discuss and move forward as a country. I thank you.
Deco Dalo, Garissa Town. Give him the mic. There you are.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the petition, especially on the one of extrajudicial killing and forced disappearances. I'm a victim of these heinous crimes, which we suspect the security agencies are involved. Mr. Speaker, from the constituency I come from, we have so many formations and units of different agencies or security agencies who we don't know who is responsible for them, in that when somebody disappears, we do not know who exactly, and when we ask those in leadership of the security agencies in the region, they always point fingers in different units and formations. We support this, or rather I support this petition, and during the last election campaigns, the president, as the leader of the Kenya Kwanza, had promised us, as people of the region, that this issue will be addressed effectively in the next government, which is now in place. We want the government to take responsibility for this. We have mothers who have lost their sons. We have women who have lost their husbands. We have children who have lost their fathers and the only breadwinners. So I support this petition, and it's timely, and we need this to be taken seriously by the petition committee. Thank you.
Member for Samburu East, Jackson.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Speaker, I want to comment on these forced disappearances. And I think, Honorable Speaker, right now Kenyans are living in a lot of fear because of these forced disappearances. And Speaker, when the Kenya Kwanza government came in power, the president assured the Kenyan that these forced disappearances will not be there. But I want to say, Mr. Speaker, it is rampant now. There are so many people disappearing, and nobody knows where they are. And I think this is the high time, Mr. Speaker, that we should deal with this issue of people disappearing. About the food security, Honorable Speaker, I think as a country, we need to deal in this issue of food secure, because right now there is nowhere maybe we can get enough food. And I think we have the power and the ability to make Kenya food secure. We only need to do what is required. Otherwise, I support the petition. Thank you.
Tim Wanyonyi. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to make comments on the forced disappearance. One, Mr. Speaker, forced disappearance is not just an isolated act. It is a well-designed and orchestrated by people who are paid by some influential people, Mr. Speaker, to cause the disappearance of certain people. Sometimes it has happened even in the Mr. Speaker, this is an act, it borders on the act of terrorism, and many people who have disappeared, and we have seen many bodies found in River Yala. And this, Mr. Speaker, the police have never done an investigation and concluded any of these acts. So we need to criminalize this thing and put it in legislation so that the lives of Kenyans are protected. And one of the primary role of government is to protect the life of Kenyans. And this is an area that we need to address. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of food security, Mr. Speaker, recently I listened to the speech by the President of Zimbabwe, and he highlighted how Zimbabwe has managed to secure itself food-wise, and the plans they came up with. And these same plans, we have them here, Mr. Speaker. If we put them in use and implement all those, Mr. Speaker, the legislation we have done, we can have food security in this country. And the government must be serious about it because Kenyans are suffering. We are using a lot of our foreign exchange to import food when Kenya is capable of producing enough food to feed its people. So, Mr. Speaker, I think this is a very deliberate effort that most Kenyans must. And the government must also buy food from farmers. The farmers who are producing food and some of them rotting in the farms. And then we find that the same government is importing food when the farmers are stuck with the food in the farms. So if we do this, then we will be able to feed our people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Aburi, what is the problem? Can you give Mpuri?
My point of order, Mr. Speaker, there's a lot of Kamkunji inside here, so we can't hear what he is saying.
The Honorable Murugara and your team, you are causing unnecessary mayhem in the House. Let's observe some order. The member who is standing talking to member for Kamkunji, take your seat. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I rise to support this petition by Madam Annette Mbogo, who the Deputy Leader of Majority tells me is from Kilifi County, and a very good scholar and lawyer. Honorable Speaker, in support of this petition, she avers, Honorable Speaker, that she has, or her organization has made efforts to have this matter addressed through the filing of a constitutional petition asking the Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya to request His Excellency the President to form a judicial commission of inquiry to look into the rampant cases of enforced disappearances, and the same has not been fruitful. Honorable Speaker, I do not know whether the chair of this committee is in the House, but probably this should be amongst the recommendations that the committee should come up with, that we do institute a commission of inquiry to get to the root cause of why people are forced to disappear. This thing we are calling forced disappearances, Mr. Speaker. And I don't know what is a forced disappearance, because what we are calling forced disappearances, Honorable Speaker, are outright killings, because there is no way you can disappear into thin air and never be found. Honorable Speaker, I also have cases in my constituency. A son to Amze Mishuki, who is my very good friend, who just disappeared into thin air. And as the petitioner avers in this petition, Honorable Speaker, in most of these cases, these are people who are allegedly arrested by people who claim to be policemen. And let us be fair, Honorable Speaker, and honest to ourselves. It is not just people who claim to be policemen. It has been actually policemen who have been abducting people in this country and killing them in broad daylight. Honorable Speaker, it is sad that when His Excellency the President disbanded what was called the SSU, I don't know special what, that unit, which was a murderous unit, Honorable Speaker, under the office of the DCI. There are many people who sought to use that as an opportunity to make politics out of it. And I was shocked, Honorable Speaker, that the people who are saying, no, now you are targeting the people who served in the former regime. You are targeting DCI Kinoti. What is targeting DCI Kinoti and those who are in office when it was official government policy to force disappearances of Kenyans and kill Kenyans and dump their bodies in River Yala, in River Tana? You remember, Honorable Speaker, I think close to 30 bodies were fished out of River Yala. Another close to 20 bodies were fished out of River Tana, Honorable Speaker. Therefore, we cannot say that anybody is being targeted. And I know because some of them today have been invited to the DCI on small matters. When the time comes, I want to ask DCI Amin not to fear anybody. Those who sanctioned and commissioned the extrajudicial killings of very many innocent Kenyans must answer, Honorable Speaker. And we must be a nation where we don't bury our history in the sand. The only reason, Honorable Speaker, why things keep repeating themselves and it get into a vicious cycle of repeating the same mistakes as a country is because we never hold anybody to account. It cannot be, Honorable Speaker, that, as this petitioner says, close to 1,200 people have disappeared into thin air, and we didn't see them rise with the Holy Spirit like Jesus Christ did. They just disappeared. Some, their bodies are found, others, their bodies are never found, Honorable Speaker. Therefore, we must get to the root cause of all these things, Honorable Speaker. And I am glad, Honorable Speaker, that under this regime, none other than His Excellency President William Ruto has asserted that every person who is arrested by a police officer must be presented before a police station, recorded in an OB, and charged before a court of law, and not to be killed, as was happening before, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, it is not just cases of terrorism. Honorable Speaker, you know that famous saying that says when they came for journalists, we were quiet because we were not them. When they went for farmers, we were quiet, we were not them. Until they came for you. That is what happened in this country, Honorable Speaker. We tolerated the extrajudicial killings of certain communities in this country on the basis that they were working with terrorists. And eventually, Honorable Speaker, it came to us. It came to our own neighborhoods. I do not think there is any member of parliament who, if not in your constituency, in your county, you know someone who has been a subject of these enforced disappearances and extrajudicial killings, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, as a responsible house, as leaders who value the sanctity of life, we must stand up to be counted. And I really want to challenge the Public Petitions Committee to not only ensure that there are legal mechanisms put in place, and that is a challenge to all of us as a house, but to also ensure that we do not bury what happened in yesteryears under the sand. Whether it is DCI Kinoti, who was in charge of DCI, whether it is Fred Matiang'i, who was the minister in charge, or whether it is the ultimate authority where the buck stopped the office of the president, people who must be held to account for the extrajudicial killings of Kenya must and should be held to account. And this House must rise to the occasion to ensure that that happens by recommending a commission of inquiry.
Order majority, yes. Honorable TJ Kajwang. Give the Honorable
Mr.
TJ.
Speaker, the member for Kikuyu, as he was speaking very well, but I do not know at what point he became, he changed from being member of Kikuyu to being the majority leader. Because then when he became a majority leader, he assumed certain things that should not happen on this floor. Mr. Speaker, he has been mentioning names, whereas I don't hold brief for anybody, anywhere, however mentioned. But our standing orders and the Constitution itself is clear that no one would be mentioned adversely without giving him a hearing or without his presence. Mr. Speaker, is it in order to mention those people that he has named in person, and yet they do not have an opportunity to defend themselves, Mr. Speaker?
Majority.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I thought the Honorable TJ is usually rattled if I mention the Ruaraka land scandal and Ruaraka constituency, but today I didn't. I only mentioned people who were in office at the time crimes against humanity were carried out in this country. And the person who was in charge of DCI is the person that I have named, DCI Kinoti. The person who was in charge of the Interior was CS Matiang'i, who happens to have visited the DCI today in poetic justice, Honorable Speaker. And the person where the buck stopped was the president. Just like today, the buck stops in the office of the President of the Republic of Kenya, William Ruto, if there are any extrajudicial killings.
Honorable Kajwang, what is out of order? He has not adversely mentioned anybody. He simply said they were in office and they were.
That's not what he said, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker,
yes,
maybe you may want, when you retire, to look at the Hansard.
Yes.
What he is saying is even making it worse. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to play politics with this. And we must never play politics with people who do not have a right to respond. All I said, all that the majority leader mentioned before he recasted his speech was that these persons should be investigated by some agencies. Now, for them to be investigated, it is an adverse finding which, in his opinion, he thinks that these people are somehow. Should he mention it as a matter of order, Mr. Speaker? I'm just asking, is it in order to mention people without giving them an opportunity to be heard? Isn't that simple, Mr. Speaker?
I hear you, Honorable Kajwang. Yeah. What I heard, and we'll check the Hansard, is that DCI was headed by Kinoti, which is fact. Interior Minister was Matiang'i, which was fact. And the head of state is fact. If he goes beyond that, I'll stop him.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for that protection. And you know, I am a very careful person with what I say here. And anywhere else I speak, Honorable Speaker. But let us not run away from the truth, Honorable Speaker. That was my point. And the committee should not be afraid. And all investigative authorities that would investigate such matters should not be afraid, Honorable Speaker. Because I was saying, if we do not deal with our past, Honorable Speaker, nothing stops other regimes, even in the future, from carrying out such extrajudicial killings unless, Honorable Speaker, people are held to account. Honorable Speaker, you know where we came from before the elections? Many of us lived under extreme fear and threat to life, Honorable Speaker. I vividly recall, Honorable Speaker, when, not Honorable, my good friend, Dennis Itumbi, was abducted just before Christmas of 2021. Honorable Speaker, the people who abducted Dennis Itumbi were actually police officers. And it took us not less than 6 hours to even get information from other officers who gave us information that indeed Dennis Itumbi was in the hands of a murderer's code within the police, and specifically the agency that was then under DCI, Kinoti, Honorable Speaker. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I'm only saying this committee should do this country a great honor in recommending that we institute a commission of inquiry such that, Honorable Speaker, it will be known the families of hundreds of Kenyans who have disappeared and they have never seen their bodies. Let them know, Honorable Speaker, what happened to their children and their family members. Hundreds of Kenyans, Honorable Speaker. Today, I was watching when I heard the member for Buri speak about Mbijiwe. And I read the story of Mbijiwe, I think, this Sunday in one of the dailies, Honorable Speaker, that the manner in which he disappeared, Honorable Speaker, leaves a lot of questions and there are pointers as to who would have been responsible for their disappearance. And the case of Mbijiwe, the case of young Mishuki from my constituency, and many other Kenyans are similar, Honorable Speaker. And unless we dig and get to the root cause, you never know. Many of the people who are forcing disappearances are still in some offices today. They still wield the same power and authority they wielded yesterday. Nothing will stop them from enforcing probably even the disappearance of members of parliament if we keep quiet. And that's why I'm saying we must not be quiet. Whether it is somebody in Northeastern, whether it is somebody from the coastal region, as Honorable and Baya says, or whether it is someone who is perceived to have been in groups like Mungiki or Chinkororo in Kisii, or whether it is someone that you disagree with politically. Because I was saying, Honorable Speaker, when we kept quiet, because we assumed it is a spirited fight against terrorists, and it is terrorists who are disappearing, they came for politicians. They came for political activists. They went after bloggers. Literally everybody, Honorable Speaker. You remember the threat people were being forced, Honorable Speaker, to subscribe to political ideals and ideologies that they do not believe in. But out of fear, Honorable Speaker, it is a fact. There are even people who are elected in parties they never desired to be in because they lived under extreme fear. They were not like Imani Ishongwa, who had the audacity to challenge people and tell them that the worst they can do. And I have said it, Honorable Speaker, I said it in an interview in one of the media houses, Honorable Speaker, in a recorded interview. And that particular media house, because of bias, and I have seen the attack they have leveled against my compatriots, the Honorable Aaron Cheriot, when he speaks about a biased media and cartels in the media houses, because they exist. And nobody is fighting media. We all want a free and objective media. And there is absolutely nothing wrong, Honorable Speaker, with even the media being biased. The media can be biased, but just be kind enough and tell Kenyans where you stand and what political leanings you subscribe to. It is not a secret, Honorable Speaker, that in America everybody knew that Fox News was with the Republicans and was supporting the former President Donald Trump. Many people knew CNN was supporting the Democrats, Honorable Speaker. So that you give Kenyans the latitude of choice to know, if I switch to this station, I will not be influenced by a media that pretends to be objective, but they are very subjective and biased. I was saying, Honorable Speaker, because I said in one of the media stations in an interview that at one point the Commander-in-Chief called me and threatened me. And I told him that the worst he could do was to kill me, but I would not change my position and my stand politically because of a fear of death. And I would never change my position on what I truly believe in, Honorable Speaker. And I say it here because those media houses, because they are biased, they could not even carry that interview. The entire interview, Honorable Speaker, was cancelled. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, let us not be fearful. Let us stand up for what is right and just. Life is sacred. Life is God-given, and no man has authority and power, however powerful they think they are, to take away another man's life, as happened, especially in the last 4 years, Honorable Speaker. It is sad, and we must never see our country degenerate again to the level it degenerated under the handshake regime of before August 8, 2022. With that, Honorable Speaker, I really want to beg, and Honorable Speaker, forgive me because this is very emotional for me. I really want to beg the chair of this committee and members of the Public Petitions Committee not to treat this petition as any other petition. Let us take it with the weight it deserves. If we truly believe in God, if we truly believe in the sanctity of life, and that God is the only giver and taker of life, not governments, not presidents, not cabinet secretaries, not Inspector General of Police, not police corporals, nobody other than God should have the will and the power to give and take away life. Honorable Speaker, I submit.
Thank you. The last one on these petitions, the member for Kamkunji. Give him the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving this opportunity to me to speak on supporting the petition by our sister on judicial killings and disappearances. And I want to echo the feelings expressed by other members of Parliament. And I speak as a member of Parliament whose constituency has been seriously affected by this particular problem. I've had many, many disappearances of people in my constituency. I remember Abdi Karura and Dr. Waititu, who suddenly disappeared one day from Majengo. I remember the killing of Bashir Mohammed, a businessman who had a strong association with my constituency, and many, many others. And to be honest, this is not something that should happen in any functioning democracy. It is something that you expect to happen in countries where with failed states, in countries where the government simply does not have the support and the authority of the population in which it is based on. So I fully support the idea of creating a commission of inquiry to look at this issue and to go in depth and bring closure to many families who have lost their loved ones. Many of the people who have been killed in this kind of circumstances and many of the disappearances are people like us. They are fathers, they are sons, they are husbands. They leave families who are completely baffled and traumatized up to this moment because they don't know what had happened to their loved ones. So it is our responsibility as members of parliament to make sure that in this democracy, in this fragile democracy we have in our country, young and fragile democracy, that we make sure that no Kenyan life is taken with no reason whatsoever by faceless state organizations. And I agree also that many of those people who have done these deeds are still working in the government system. You can find them in offices, you would find them at police stations, and to be honest, this is something that can come to haunt us. And therefore, it is very important that we bring justice to the families, we bring closure to this issue, and we make sure that this never, ever happens in our country. And many people say that, this happened only to some few people. It is not. It is widespread, and as has been mentioned here, many communities, not only my own community in Isli and Majengo has suffered, but many more communities have suffered by losing people through these disappearances carried out by known government agents. And in a number of times I have raised this issue in Parliament. The government ministry responsible for internal security has come to lie to this House to say they have no idea where these people have gone. They do not know who has taken them. And the question I ask every time, isn't it not your responsibility to protect the lives of all Kenyans? And if it is not you or your department that has done this thing, don't you have a responsibility to investigate and tell the Kenyan people what has happened? Otherwise, you must take responsibility. And I really urge the House to work on the creation of a task force or a commission of inquiry to be able to thoroughly investigate this matter and bring it to a closure so that the loved ones, the victims' families should know the truth of what happened to their children, what happened to their sons, what happened to their daughters. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity, and I support the petition.
Thank you, honorable members. Order, honorable members, allow me to go back to order number 3 and convey a message from the Senate. Honorable members, there's a message from the Senate on approval of appointment of a member to the Parliamentary Service Commission under Article 127(2)(d) of the Constitution. Honorable members, pursuant provision of Standing Order number 41, I wish to report to the House that I have received a message from the Senate regarding approval of appointment of a member to the Parliamentary Service Commission under Article 127(2)(d) of the Constitution. In the message, honorable members, the Speaker of the Senate conveys that the Senate on 28 February 2023 considered the report of the Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights on the proposed appointment of Honorable Johnston Modama as a Commissioner of the Parliamentary Service Commission pursuant to Article 127(2)(d) of the Constitution, Section 9C of the Parliamentary Service Act, and Standing Order 77(3), and by a resolution approved the appointment of Honorable Johnston Modama as a Commissioner of the Parliamentary Service Commission. Honorable members, you may recall that on Wednesday, 15 February 2023, this House approved the appointment of Honorable Johnston Modama as a Commissioner of the Parliamentary Service Commission, following which I conveyed the fact to the Senate for concurrence. In this regard, the approval by the Senate of the said nominee concludes the bicameral appointment process contemplated under Article 127 of the Constitution. As a matter of fact, the Honorable Johnston Mudama has already been sworn in and is discharging his duties as a commissioner. For the record, honorable members, I have already said that. I have sworn him in and he's already discharging his duties. I thank you. Honorable members, although it's a little late, there were 2 schools in the gallery. I'm told I've left, but we should acknowledge Sawagongo High School from Game Siaya was in the gallery, and Nairobi River Primary School from Embakasi West. I'm told they have left, but on your behalf and my own behalf, we welcome them to the House of Parliament. I'm sure they're still within the precincts. Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Majority.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Tuesday, March 7th, 2023. Submission of nominees to Garissa and Mbeere North constituencies from the National Government Constituency Development Fund Board. 2, research on the state of certified secretaries, CS profession in Kenya from the Institute of Certified Secretaries. 3, performance audit report on provision of maternal and neonatal health care by the Ministry of Health from the Office of the Auditor General. 4, annual performance report for the period 1st July 2021 to 30th June 2022 from the Ministry of Defense. 5, reports of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect of the following institutions for the year ended 30th June 2021 and the certificates therein. Kaimosi Friends University College, Siruti Technical and Vocational College, Awendo, Madera Technical and Vocational College, St. Paul's Kibabii Diploma Teachers Training College, Kongoni Technical and Vocational College, Kiminini Technical and Vocational College, Bunyala Technical and Vocational College, St. Augustine Teachers Training College, Iregi, Nzoia Sugar Company Limited, Kenya Wildlife Service, and Warehouse Receipt Systems Council. 6, reports of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect of the following constituencies for the year ended 30th June 2021 and the certificates therein. Bondo, Lari, Hamisi, Garissa Township, Seme, Endebes, Funyula, Webuye East. I see I got the attention of Honorable Jikalo when I mentioned Seme. Chuka Igamba Ng'ombe, Dharaka, Kimilili, and Samburu North. 7 is a report of the Auditor General and financial statements of East Africa Skills, Transformation and Regional Integration Project, credit number 6334-KE, Kenya Coast National Polytechnic, for the year ended 30th June 2022 and the certificates therein. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, the 7th of March, 2023. Report of joint sitting of the National Assembly Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning and the Senate Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the approval hearing for Dr. Susan Jemtai Koech, the nominee for appointment to the position of Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Member of the Kenya Parliament delegation to where? IPU, John Kiari.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And today, Tuesday, the 7th March 2023, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House. This is the report of the Kenya delegation to the 145th Assembly of the Interparliamentary Union, IPU, also known as the Parliament of Parliaments, and related meetings held in Nusa Dua, Indonesia, from the 20th to the 24th March 2022. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Honorable Kuria Kimani.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I'd like to give a notice of motion for the approval of appointment of Deputy Governor of Central Bank of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, that taking into consideration the findings of the Judge Committee of the National Assembly Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning and the Senate Standing Committee on Finance and Budget in its report on vetting of one Dr. Susan Jemtai Koech for approval as Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya, laid on the table of the House this afternoon, Tuesday, the 7th March 2023, and pursuant to Section 13B1 and 13C1 of the Central Bank of Kenya, Section 8.2 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act of 2011, and Standing Order 216(5)F of the National Assembly Standing Orders, that this House approves the appointment of Dr. Susan Jemtai Koech as the Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. I submit, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable John Kerry.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that this House notes the report of the Kenya delegation to the 144th Assembly of the Interparliamentary Union, the IPU, and the related meetings that were held in Nusa Dua, Indonesia, from the 20th to the 24th of March 2022, laid on the table of this House this afternoon, which is Tuesday, the 7th of March 2023. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, House Business also agreed to the honorable member from Marakwet, is it West, to also give a notice of motion. Are you ready?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, before I give a notice of motion, Mr. Speaker, I beg to bring before you attention that as we speak, there is ongoing attacks against the Marakwet community in Aror ward by Kamket boys from Tiati. Mr. Speaker.
Order, honorable member, you are totally out of order. Honorable member, Honorable Kamket is a member of this House, and I know you are a new member. Acquaint yourself with the standing orders. If you want to discuss Honorable Kamket and or his boys, bring a motion, I'll give it to you and you'll debate him. But you don't just casually mention a colleague like that. It's not allowed under our standing orders. Can you give your notice of motion that I allowed you to do by starting saying, I beg to give notice of the following motion?
Mr. Speaker, I am very much aware of the standing order of this House. With a lot of respect, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the issue happening along Kerio Valley.
Order, honorable member, you are getting out of order. I have given you authority of the House Business Committee, sit down, member, to give notice of motion. If everybody is aware of the insecurity challenges we're having, last week I gave the honorable member for Turkana, the distinguished member Asinyen, and she very decently prosecuted a motion on insecurity in Turkana. I've done so for other members. I'll do so for you as well. What I will not do is to allow you to exhibit any unnecessary motions on the floor or to attack a member without a motion. That I will not allow you. Proceed to give your notice of motion.
Very well, Mr. Speaker, I'm well guided. Mr. Speaker, I beg to give a notice of motion. I beg to give notice of the following motion, that aware that Article 42(1)(a) of the Constitution of Kenya provides for the right of every person to access the highest attainable standard of health, which includes the right to health care services. Further aware that cancer is among the leading causes of death in this country, noting that although the budgetary allocation for healthcare service is progressive, it is inadequate to cater for cancer prevention and care across the country. Further noting that cancer control in the country is hampered by inadequate cancer infrastructure and limited specialized human resource capacity, recognizing that a significant number of cancer patients do not complete the prescribed treatment due to the high cost of cancer management, further recognizing that the Cancer Prevention and Control Act 2012 seeks to promote access to quality and affordable diagnostic and treatment services for persons with cancer, and to ensure sustainable capacity for the prevention and control of cancer, this House resolves that the government, through the National Treasury, establishes a National Cancer Prevention and Control Fund to promote prevention, control, and treatment of cancer in the country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. If you want to talk about what I've stopped the member from talking about, I'll stop you as well. Give him the mic.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate your protection, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, you've heard the honorable member.
There you go. I
No,
stop
no.
you. Sit down. Honorable member. Order, Honorable Kamket. Order, Honorable Kamket. There are many forms of cancer. There are very many forms of cancer, but the Kamket cancer will not be allowed on the floor of this House. I now give the floor to the member for Nyali, who has also been allowed by House business to give notice of motion.
Shukran sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Naomba kutoa arifa ya hoja kuhusu kutekelezwa kwa sheria za kupiga marufuku mahusiano ya jinsia moja nchini Kenya. Kwamba tukifahamu kuwa familia ndiyo kiungo cha msingi cha jamii na kutambua kwamba utamaduni wa Kiafrika una thamani sana asasi ya ndoa ambayo inahakikisha kuendelea kwa binadamu kupitia uzazi, tukizingatia ukweli kwamba ibara ya 45(2) ya katiba inaeleza kuwa kila mtu mzima ana haki ya kufunga ndoa na mtu wa jinsia tofauti kwa msingi wa hiari baina ya wahusika. Tukitambua pia kwamba kifungu cha 162 cha kanuni ya adhabu kinamtia hatiani yeyote ambaye anashiriki tendo la ngono lisilo la kawaida na mtu yoyote kinyume na utaratibu wa asili. Tukizingatia kuwa mahusiano na ndoa za jinsia moja na ngono inayotokana na mahusiano haya ni kinyume na utaratibu wa asili. Tukisikitika kwamba kumekuwa na ongezeko la mahusiano ya jinsia moja nchini Kenya kutokana na usambazaji wa vitabu na machapisho yanayozua upotovu huo, tukitambua kwamba uchapishaji na usambazaji wa vyenzo zinazohusu mahusiano ya jinsia moja katika machapisho na vyombo vya habari una athari kali kwa maadili ya jamii kuhusu mwelekeo wa kijinsia. Tukihimiza kwamba kuna haja ya kutekeleza sheria ili kulinda na kuhifadhi maadili ya mahusiano ya jinsia tofauti katika taifa, tukifahamu kwamba hakuna uwezekano wa kuzaa kutokana na mahusiano ya ndoa za jinsia moja, tukihofia kwamba kuongezeka kwa mahusiano na ndoa za jinsia moja kunatia jamii ya wanadamu nchini katika hatari ya kutoweka. Bunge hili hivyo basi linaazimia kwamba serikali ipige marufuku mara moja uzungumziaji, uchapishaji na usambazaji wa taarifa zinazokuza mahusiano ya jinsia moja nchini na kuweka mikakati ya kudhibiti maudhui hayo kwa mujibu wa ibara ya 45(2) ya katiba na kifungu cha 162 cha sheria ya adhabu ili kuikinga jamii hasa watoto na vijana dhidi ya kufikiwa na mielekeo potovu ya mapenzi na ndoa ya jinsia moja, yaani ushoga na usagaji almaarufu kwa lugha ya Kimombo gayism and lesbian. Shukran sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Thank you, Honorable Mohammed. Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Honourable members, we have many questions, so let me deal with the statements first before we go to the questions. Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for indulgence. Mr. Speaker, I wish pursuant to Standing Order number 44, 2B, seek leave to make a statement in relation to a stalemate in the Committee on Selection over proposed changes in membership of various House committees by the Minority Coalition Party. Honorable Speaker, the committee system of the National Assembly is anchored in Article 124 of the Constitution and the relevant standing orders. Specifically, Honorable Speaker, the Committee on Selection is established under Standing Order number 172 and is responsible for nominating members to serve in various House committees. Honorable Speaker, Standing Order number 172 provides that the Committee on Selection shall consist of the leader of the majority party, who is the chairperson, the leader of the minority party, not less than 11 and not more than 19 members, who are nominated by parliamentary parties and approved by this House. Honorable Speaker, Standing Order number 2 defines a parliamentary party as a party or coalition of parties consisting of not less than 5% of the membership of the National Assembly. The Azimio coalition therefore qualifies as a parliamentary party. The same Standing Order number 172 recognizes the duty of the minority party to place its members in House committees. This duty extends to making changes in the membership of the House committees whenever it is deemed necessary. Honorable Speaker, during the Committee on Selection sitting held on Wednesday, 22nd February 2023, the minority party leadership proposed changes on minority party membership to a number of House committees. To the consternation of the minority party, the said proposed changes met strong opposition from members of the majority party in the Committee on Selection, eventually denying them the requisite approval, thereby occasioning the current impasse. Honorable Speaker, it's against this backdrop that the minority party seeks your intervention on this critical matter. We are seeking your guidance on the same and specifically invite you to make a determination on the following issues. 1, whether choices and decisions of a parliamentary party or coalition on its representation on House committees are an exclusive mandate and preserve of the respective party or coalition, or a function to be shared by other parties or coalitions in the House. 2, whether members of the majority party in the Committee on Selection can veto, challenge, or oppose changes to House committee membership proposed by the minority party. 3, whether it is intended, under Standing Orders number 172 and 173, that parliamentary parties would be granted powers to veto or challenge each other's decisions, especially on appointment or change in appointment of House committee membership. Honorable Speaker, it can clearly be gleaned from Standing Order number 173(1) that nomination of a member to serve on a select committee simply requires consultation of the Committee on Selection with the relevant parliamentary parties. The Standing Order stipulates as follows, of course in part, that unless otherwise provided by any written law or these standing orders, the Committee on Selection shall, in consultation with parliamentary parties other than parliamentary parties and independents, nominate members who shall serve on a select committee. Honorable members, Honorable Speaker, in our understanding, the consultation provided for here refers to the courtesy of formally informing all members of the Committee on Selection of a party's or coalition's choices of members to serve on a House committee, in order that the proposals eventually submitted to the House for approval are regarded as property of the Committee on Selection in the spirit of bipartisanship in the conduct of parliamentary business. It would otherwise have been too disorderly for each nominating party or coalition to present to the whole House for approval its own nominees to various House committees. Given that the resultant committees are committees of this House and not of the respective parties or coalitions, it is only logical that parties or coalitions extend courtesy Honorable Speaker.
You said your statement will take 3 minutes.
Just 1 more minute, or 1.5. Honorable Speaker, neither Standing Order number 172 nor 173 presupposes a situation where either the majority or minority side of the committee can veto, oppose, or otherwise challenge the appointment or change thereof of House committee membership by parliamentary parties to various House committees. Where the majority or minority parties purport to do so, it is tantamount to infringing on the right and exclusive mandate of the party seeking to make those appointments or effect changes in its appointments. Honorable Speaker, our reading of Standing Orders 172 and 173 does not establish that they were meant to grant either the majority or minority side powers to veto or in any way challenge the other side's choice or decisions in this regard. And I want to conclude because I'm just paraphrasing now. Honorable Speaker, the stance taken by the majority party membership in the Committee on Selection on this matter not only therefore sets a dangerous precedent, but has the added effect of stifling the practice of true multi-party democracy under Article 4 of Article 2 of the Constitution. Honorable Speaker, it is our submission that there's neither provision in the Constitution of Kenya, legislation, standing orders, nor any precedent in the traditions and practices of the Houses of Parliaments in the Commonwealth that would support the impunged position adopted by the minority party membership, I think majority party, in the Committee on Selection on the matter in question. And I want to conclude now. Honorable Speaker, finally, Honorable Speaker, we invite you to apply your mind and vast experience to this matter and deliver a considered ruling that will not only unlock the unnecessary stalemate, but also preserve the integrity and credibility of the institution of the National Assembly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Wandai. Since you are inviting me to make a determination and you make reference to the conduct in the committee where both you and your colleague in the majority sit, let me give him a minute or two to make a comment on the matter.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Let me thank the leader of minority on that statement. However, Honorable Speaker, if you read our standing orders, Standing Order 87-2, Honorable Speaker, Standing Order says that it shall be out of order to introduce an argument on any specific question upon which the House has taken a decision during the same session, except upon a motion to rescind the decision made with the permission of the Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I read that standing order because having keenly listened to the leader of minority, I don't know whether he intends to rescind the decision of the House and of the committee, because the committee also sits on behalf of the larger plenary, and therefore a decision made in committee, unless there is a motion to rescind that decision, then I just wonder what the minority leader may be inviting you to do. However, Honorable Speaker, the issues are spoken to, and because he has alluded to the fact that the leadership or those in the majority may want to stifle any changes within the minority. And I did state here, Honorable Speaker, it is not our business in the majority to manage the minority, and we have no such intentions. We will just invite the minority to manage their own affairs within their coalition, just like those of us in the majority manage our own affairs. And Honorable Speaker, without involving the majority in how they arrive at their decisions. But I did indicate, Honorable Speaker, even when the minority whip raised that issue on the floor here, that indeed before the committee a decision had been made. And that is how the motion that appeared on the floor of the House in the manner it came, without changes in the minority party. Honorable Speaker, even in committee, we did indicate to the minority leader, and I want to repeat the same. In the House, the minority has every right to make whatever changes they want to make. And as chair of the Selections Committee, Honorable Speaker, I want to assure the leader of minority that should he indicate the desire to make any changes, we are ready and willing to convene a meeting. And indeed, Honorable Speaker, as we adjourned that meeting, we did indicate that we are trying to come up with a framework on how members of parliament to enjoy uninterrupted service in committees during a session of parliament. And when we want to change members in the leadership, Honorable Speaker, there at least be some basis so that we always enjoy some objectivity in how we place members in committees or displace others, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, I want to invite the leader of minority, if there are any changes that the minority may desire to make, the Selections Committee, even as we work on that framework, because we did indicate, and I think since he's a member of that committee together with the Deputy Leader, Honorable Robert Mbui, who was not in the meeting that day, we had indicated from the beginning that we do not want the Selections Committee to be a committee that only sits once in a session of Parliament, but we will occasionally sit to review the performance of members in committees. Performance right from attendance and active participation, so that we encourage our members to give their skills and expertise in committees. Therefore, if you are a member of a committee, you usually don't attend that committee, it is only fair that you allow another member who has the time to offer his time before a committee. And that's the kind of framework we want to ensure, and I did indicate, Honorable Speaker, is only in the pursuit of fairness, so that tomorrow I don't remove the Honorable Naomi from one committee and take her to another committee, just at the whim of it. So that we have a framework. If the Honorable Naomi, and she will forgive me for using her as an example, usually doesn't attend the Transport Committee, and she's a member of the Transport Committee, for instance, and the Honorable Kagombe here is an engineer who wants to offer his skills and expertise in road construction before that committee, then we have basis to remove the Honorable Naomi and get someone with the skills to serve in that particular committee. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, is just to reiterate to the leader of minority and the minority leadership that we are very much willing, even tomorrow or the day after, to convene a Selections Committee meeting even before we work on that framework, so that he doesn't in any way feel that the majority wants to lord over them. We are a very democratic majority party and majority coalition that intends to facilitate the work of the minority in offering meaningful oversight. And indeed, we want to see that even in the oversight committees, they place the best within their team, so that those who may have stolen from Telcom Kenya and the 34 billion shillings that we have seen from the Auditor General's report, stolen from the fuel subsidy fund, Honorable Speaker, we can offer meaningful oversight and ensure that these things do not ever happen again, Honorable Speaker. If you can only protect me from the Honorable Anjala. I don't know why he's fond of always shouting in committees, in plenary, and everywhere, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, let me just assure the leader of minority, as much as he may, and Honorable Speaker, with your indulgence, you allowed that statement, But I was just wondering where it sits in view of the standing order 87-2 in terms of seeking to reopen something that was already decided on. But should he be seeking guidance on the way forward? Honorable Speaker, I want to assure you and the House that as chair of the selections committee, we are ready to facilitate the minority leadership to make whatever changes they want to make, and it will be within their right, Honorable Speaker. But at the end of the day, Honorable Speaker, again, we must always remember, and I did remind the leader of the minority whip last time, that committees act and sit on behalf of the House. And whatever decision then, and any report that comes from a committee, then must eventually land in plenary for the House to make a decision and a determination on it. So that, Honorable Speaker, we entrench our democracy such that we do not seem to be infringing on anybody's rights, even members of parliament, whether they are within our coalition or any other coalition, Honorable Speaker. And with that, Honorable Speaker, I beg to respond in that manner.
Thank you, Honorable Majority and Minority. From what both of you are saying, I don't see any problem. I will advise the minority leader to liaise with the majority leader as the chair of selections committee, and if you wish to call for a sitting of the committee and prosecute your issues, go ahead and do so. Next statement is from the Honorable Joshua Kandia. Yes, Carolo Mondi, what is the problem? What is out of order?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I was just wondering under order standing order number 91, whether we could use that to question where a member is bringing forward a legal argument that is not founded, whether, because it will not be substantiated. I think the problem with, if you read standing orders number 172, 171 and 172, is that there's a hangover that we have from our previous political system, parliamentary system. And that is what is explaining the statement by the minority leader. If you look at this, what we have now, a presidential system, which informs the phrasing of Standing Order 171 and 172, the placement of members in committees is the work of the selection committee. It's not the work of the political parties, as is in a parliamentary system of government. It is the work of the selection committee. Why? Because every member walks into this chamber with a free mandate under presidential system of government. In a parliamentary system, you walk into this chamber with a bound mandate, having sought your election on a political party platform. So it is very different, Mr. Speaker, and I'm wondering whether it is in order for the minority leader to try to apply rules of parliamentary systems of government to a presidential system of government. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I hear you, but I don't want to open debate on this. I think I had already given direction, Honorable Wandai. Give him the mic.
Listen, I think the Honorable Karoli Omondi didn't listen to me keenly, because he's now reading Standing Order 171 and 172 in isolation. And I went further to read 173, which I want just to repeat for record purposes.
It is on Hansard.
And I can also excuse him because he's a new member, you know, Honorable Speaker. He's just learning the ropes. Mr. Speaker, 173 requires that unless otherwise provided by any written law or these standing orders, the Committee on Selection shall, in consultation with parliamentary parties other than parliamentary parties and independents, nominate members who shall serve on a select committee. That is the catchphrase. Thank you. Thank you.
Honorable Kandia.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 44-2C, I rise to request a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Environment, Forestry and Mining regarding the stalled Grandich Water Supply Project Phase 2 in Baringo County. Mr. Speaker, can can you protect me from Wanjala?
Honorable Wanjala, Honorable Kandie is seeking the protection of the chair from you.
Honorable Speaker, Grandich Dam was constructed between 1994 and 2000 under Grandich Phase 1 project funded by the government of Kenya with the support from the Italian government. In 2007, the dam system presented challenges including lack of wastewater management system in Kabarnet town, functional failures of the dam instrumentation systems, high operation and maintenance costs, among others. Honorable Speaker, to address the challenges, the board was prompted to design a phase 2 of the project through a loan of euros 18,856,000 from the government of Italy. The scope of phase 2 of the project included the extension of water supply to Kapartonjo, Kaptorokwa, Faya Kabasis, Kituro, and Kapkut, sewerage system for Kabarnet town, purchase and installation of the dam's electrical and instrumentation equipment, among other works. The contracts for the works was awarded in 2016 to Cospin SRL in joint venture with Norofi SRL and Hydroesi Engineering SRL. The dam was expected to commence in 2016 and be completed in 2018. However, as of May 2018, the completion rate of the named project stood at 3.1%, which was far below the initial agreement. Honorable Speaker, for 7 years since inception of this project, the contractor severally requested for extension of the timelines. But despite the numerous extensions that were granted, nothing much has been done except the setting up of contractors' camp, which is also incomplete. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I seek a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Environment, Forestry and Mining on the following. 1, could the chairperson explain the reasons why phase 2 of Grandich Water Dam project that was commenced in 2016 and expected to be completed in 2018 as stalled for the last 7 years? 2, could the government consider nullifying the tender awarded to MS Cospin SRL in joint venture with Norofi SRL and Hydroesi Engineering SRL for inability to undertake works despite having been granted several extensions in 2016, in 2018, in 2020, and in 2022, and awarded to a capable contractor? 3, what measures has the government put in place to ensure completion of the said project, including construction of a sewerage line for Kabarnet town, which was part of the scope of works under the contract? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
I think next is the Honorable Emmanuel Wangwe, member for Navokoli.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise on Standing Order 43, especially Part 1, under General Statements, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, education is a very important foundation to any citizenry. And we witnessed a situation, Honorable Speaker, on Friday last week, where our Speaker, substantive Speaker, I was of the opinion that I would have raised this when he's on the chair, had to get award, Honorable Speaker, for the doctorate from Kibabi University. Honorable Speaker, it's my wish that I seek your acceptance. I congratulate the Speaker, the substantive Speaker, upon his attainment of this honorary degree, which is a prestigious honor, Honorable Speaker, especially for a person who is leading a house like ours, a person who has traveled a journey of academic concern, and Honorable Speaker, a person who has had it all in terms of politics. When you look at his period of existence, Honorable Speaker, he has gone a journey in terms of the political parties, in terms of political leadership, in terms of House leadership. And Honorable Speaker, eventually, he has attained the highest level in terms of academics. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I rise to seek that it is important we acknowledge the Speaker, especially upon his attainment and attainment of a PhD in from the Kebab University. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
What's your point of order, Honorable Bowen Kangogo?
Honorable Speaker, I just want to seek your guidance on the statements read by the Honorable Member of Baringo Central to do with Kirandik Dam. I think the question is supposed to be directed to me as the Chair of Water, Irrigation, and Blue Economy. But how that question is framed, it's like it's addressing it to the chairperson of Environment and Forestry. I want to seek your guidance, Madam Speaker, on that question, because it is something which we had discussed in our committee, and I don't know if it has been transferred to the Committee of Environment. So please, we're seeking your guidance.
Yes, I think, Honorable Bowen, you're right. I think this is because previously there wasn't a Blue Economy, Irrigation and Water Committee. So I think for the Hansard purposes, it will be referred to the Committee of Blue Economy. Okay, now we go to questions. The Honorable Member for Lamu East, Honorable Rueda Obo.
Asante Bispika. Swali hili limengojewa sana, mpaka wenyewe wamekuja hapa na dadangu rafiki yangu Thueba ametoka Sio, amekuja kuona vile tutauliza hili swali kwa sababu wao wanaathiriwa sana. Thank you Bispika for giving me this opportunity to ask question number 1 to 2023 to the Cabinet Secretary for Information, Communication and the Digital Economy. 1. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain why CU, Shanga, and Mkokoni in Lamu East constituency are suffering from digital exclusion by not being connected to the mobile network? 2. Could the Cabinet Secretary further explain reason why the entire Lamu East constituency is still served by 2G network when the rest of the country is on 4G network and it is soon transiting to 5G network? 3. What plans does the ministry have to ensure that CU, Shanga, and Mkokoni area are connected to the mobile phone network and that the network coverage in Lamu East constituency upgraded from current 2G to 4G? Thank you, Speaker.
Next question is by member for Embakasi Central, Honorable Benjamin Gadiru.